I know there's going to be comments probably saying, why are you shooting with an anamorphic adapter if you don't like those blue horizontal flares? I think shooting anamorphic offers a lot more than just those flares. G'day again. So today I'm going to do a little video on some testing I actually did last year using an anamorphic adapter for the first time to get that native anamorphic look in camera, utilizing some lenses that I already knew and loved and used a lot. So I was kind of interested in this idea of combining an anamorphic adapter with some vintage lenses. I thought this is a way to basically get that anamorphic look on a budget, because I guess from looking around at some of the cheaper anamorphic lens options, I don't think they had as good a look as some of the lenses I already owned. So it's like you're getting a native anamorphic lens, but maybe it's not the nicest piece of glass. So yeah, I thought this would be an interesting way of doing some test shooting in anamorphic, utilizing some lenses I already had. So the product I used for this was made by SLR Magic. It's called the Anamorphot, and it was a 1.33 times adapter. And they come in some different sizes depending on the outer diameter of your lenses. So I use this adapter on a range of vintage lenses that I already own, mainly the Contax-Zeiss, but I also did a little bit of stuff on some Minolta and also the Helios. Here's some initial testing I did around Sydney when I picked them up. So I knew I had a trip to Korea coming up, and I thought that'd be a great way to test these out. I've been kind of trying to use travel as a means of testing new things, playing around with new gear, new concepts, things like that. So yeah, my partner's from Korea. We normally go there once a year for a holiday, and this time we were going to go down to Jeju Island in the south, which I knew was going to be a really great area to do some test shots and get some footage. So yeah, I used the anamorphic adapter whenever I could on that trip, and used it on two different cameras, either the red Komodo, basically when it was convenient to be able to carry that bigger setup around, or for more nimble shooting, I put it on my A7siii. So here's some of that footage. So from that testing, there was things I liked and things I didn't like. So I didn't really love the flares. I know there's going to be comments probably saying, why are you shooting with an anamorphic adapter if you don't like those blue horizontal flares? Well, they're not for me personally. And I think in particular with this lens adapter, they're just very thin, sharp blue, digital looking, and in certain very stylized scenarios they might suit, but they didn't really suit for me. But what I did like is that anamorphic flare that the adapter was providing, paired with the natural flare of the lens you were using, did create some pretty nice flares at times. It was always just kind of on a certain angle of the light source or something like that. So if you played around with it, there were some nice flares you could get. But when it was a super directional source into the lens and it made that really sharp blue line horizontal flare, I didn't like that one so much. But I think shooting anamorphic offers a lot more than just those flares. I don't personally love those horizontal flares in general, except for maybe on some more expensive cinema lenses. But what I like is the other attributes, the kind of the focus fall off, the halation, the different shaped bokeh. I thought all of that kind of gave you some interesting ingredients to, I guess, make some more filmic or work with a bit more character in it. So I really liked some of those results. In regards to the product itself, it was pretty good. It's a little bit fiddly. Sometimes it's hard to get it perfectly lined up. Just to give some context, if you don't have it rotated on perfectly, the focus plane will be off, the flare lines won't be properly horizontal, and it'll just look a bit strange. So you really do have to make sure that it's lined up. You can kind of look at it when you're putting it on the lens and line up 2 points at the top and bottom, check that they're vertical. And also something that I do is turn the torch on my phone, shine it directly into the lens and use that flare to make sure that everything's lined up nicely. So there's that kind of fiddly aspect of it. The other part is that it has its own focus, so you have to adjust it for things that get closer to the camera. When you run and gun, that can be a little bit fiddly. You do start to get the hang of it after a while, but yeah, basically it has to be on one setting, I think, for say things that are 3 meters or beyond away, and another setting for things that are closer to the lens. And sometimes in between, I found myself having to kind of zoom in, get the focus on the lens, then zoom in and get the focus on the anamorphic adapter to find that sweet spot. So I guess it's something to keep in mind using something like this. It will slow your shooting down a bit, but you know, if you're chasing these anamorphic results, it's definitely an interesting option. I guess from a testing perspective, what that shows me is that it's a good setup to use for my own personal creative kind of projects. You know, if I was going to do a short documentary, which I did go on to do with this setup, or a music video or something like that, just knowing the limitations. Because yeah, I just wouldn't feel comfortable taking that setup onto a shoot where it was maybe a bit more high end or someone else was doing the post or something like that. I think in that scenario, I'd rather just shoot with the lens itself without the adapter and then crop it. So yeah, this testing process definitely showed me what I liked and didn't like about the adapter. And yeah, it was a lot of fun shooting in that new aspect ratio. Nice to be able to intentionally frame things as shot instead of adjusting it up and down in post. I think it's always better to frame as close to the end result as possible. From this testing and kind of seeing what the strengths and weaknesses were, what I liked and what I didn't like, I decided that I'm going to shoot my next personal short documentary using this setup. I'd also purchased the Anamorphic adapter for my drone. It was made by Moment, also a 1.33 times adapter. So this was a cool chance for me to be able to go out, shoot a short documentary in native Anamorphic and get some results that were a little bit different to the work I normally do. And I'm going to do a future episode breaking down that short documentary that I shot. Cheers guys, hooroo.